Hi there, this is my final project on the different exceptionalities that we have discussed through this course, Educating Exceptional Students, and the different characteristics that these exceptionalities may include. So the first one that we discussed was learning disabilities, and one of the first characteristics are the social aspects of it, and some of them would be anxiety, depression, loneliness, and even acting out. Then also with academic challenges, there's challenges in learning and processing information, and it's really important for you to have high expectations with your students so that they are knowing that they need to meet a certain standard. Another characteristic is the cognitive part of it. So students with learning disabilities usually have trouble with short-term, long-term, and working memory. They also have difficulty trying to pay attention to relative information and not letting the irrelevant information interfere with them. And some other learning disabilities include, or learning difficulties, include reading, math, and writing. So the universal design for learning and differentiated instruction, some things that are included there would be embedded learning opportunities, so teaching developmentally important skills to your students, using lots of visual and graphic organizers, models and demonstrations, and also incorporating manipulatives so the students can be hands-on and they're able to learn in different ways. The second exceptionality would be communication disorders. So within this, firstly, communication disorders are often seen with different disorders such as autism, but they can also be seen by themselves without any other disorders related. So the first characteristic, social. Biggest thing is that communication skills are learned through social interaction. So if their communication skills are lacking, their social interaction is probably not going to be as high as someone who does not have a communication disorder. And then with communication disorders, there's many different speech disorders such as articulation disorder, apraxia of speech, voice disorders, and fluency disorders. So the UDLs and differentiated instruction that go with this, using different means to deliver your content is helpful. Graphic organizers, different ways for students to demonstrate their knowledge is really helpful for them. They need to learn or need to show you in different ways, maybe different than what a normal student would. And always, if assistive technology works for them, then by all means you should use that too. The next exceptionality would be emotional and behavioral disorders. So for the emotional part, that includes anxiety disorder, mood disorder, ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, and also schizophrenia. And the behavioral part of that, there's different types of behavior, there's externalizing behavior and also internalizing behavior. So some of the academic and cognitive challenges that may come with this disorder would be that some may be gifted, or they may have an intellectual disability. It's a very broad range. Most of the IQs, though, are in the low average range, and most people with an emotional or behavioral disorder are below the 25th percentile on some of their skills, such as reading, writing, and math. With the UDLs and differentiated instruction for emotional and behavioral disorders, it's important to use multi-component interventions. So that's combining multiple strategies for complex problems, and being able to solve a problem in more than one way is helpful. Also, a classroom-centered intervention combines mastery learning and good behavior game. Service learning, teaching activities with community service, and also allow students to leave the classroom if necessary. If they're overwhelmed or overstimulated, allowing them to have a break is very much helpful for them. And I included also use a calm down corner, and I've seen those used in lots of classrooms, and I think that they're very beneficial to students with behavior issues. So the next exceptionality would be ADHD. One of the first characteristics of ADHD would be like the social characteristics of it and the social aspects. So basically they have a hard time paying attention in their social activities. They have difficulty regulating their emotions, and they may have trouble with pragmatic language, such as engaging in conversation or using appropriate gestures. And they also have some intellectual and academic challenges, sometimes, not always, such as they're likely to be identified as gifted. A lot of them are highly, highly intelligent. On the other hand, some aren't. Some are lower, and some have lower vocabularies. It's very broad. ADHD can affect basically anyone. Some UDLs and differentiated instruction for this one would be make some modifications for your students so that they can avoid distraction. If that means removing them from group instruction, allowing them to kind of sit in an isolated area just so that they're not able to distract themselves with anyone else. Help keep their area organized as well, just so that they have nothing that's going to interfere with their learning. The next one would be autism, and with this also many different characteristics that go with it. So social, a lot of autistic kids, well, it's a very broad range with this too. There's nonverbal, and there's also very, very high functioning that can have a full conversation with anyone. But their social emotional reciprocity is kind of wavered there. So sometimes it's hard for them to take turns communicating, to make eye contact, or to just take initiative in making friends or talking to anyone that they're interested in talking to. It's hard for them to make that move to go there. Also with their intellectual and academic, like I said before, it's varying levels of intelligence. There can be students that are super high functioning and some that cannot. Oh, also with this is the savant syndrome, and that includes students who have extraordinary talents. So an autistic student may be able to know a calendar date from 1940, but they don't know how to add and subtract. That would be a savant syndrome, and a lot of autistic kids may have this. So some UDLs and differentiated instruction that go along with this would be that students need help learning how to learn. So this is with any student. You have to teach them strategies in order to better their learning and understand more. And each student's strategies may be different, and especially with kids with autism, you really need to focus on what strategies work well for them, and various strategies. So if this isn't working one day, you need to have another strategy that can help you the next. Also using positive and negative reinforcements that help reinforce good behavior and decline the bad behavior. Another exceptionality we discussed was intellectual disabilities. Many characteristics, again, go with this one, one being the cognitive characteristics. So people or students with intellectual disabilities usually have their impairments in their memory, including short-term, long-term, and their working memory. Memory training, although, can lead to enhancements in their memory, so they can be able to, their memory can improve. And they also have difficulty with generalization, so relating tasks, it's hard for them to do that. Next, with their social part of their characteristics, they have difficulty with responsibility, self-esteem, and also rule following. Universal design for learning and differentiated instruction for intellectual disabilities. So pre-linguistic milo teaching, which is frequent clear requests with whom they are talking to. So just being really clear back and forth who they're talking to and being able to understand who they're taking their requests from. Also help students take a meaningful role in their education, help them be active, an active part of their learning. And you should also have instructional goals that are based on the student's preference. They want to let them kind of choose what they're learning and how they learn it. It will help them and be very beneficial to them. Next would be traumatic brain injuries. So with this, lots of characteristics that go into it, cognitive and academic being one. They have an increased rate on intellectual impairment because of the traumatic brain injury. There's a high risk of them being nonverbal. And of course, problems with memory and executive functions like planning, problem solving, things like that. And then with the social and emotional part of it, they may have problems in building close friendships, solving social problems, and also recognizing emotions. Some UDLs in differentiated instruction for this one would be teach problem-solving skills so that they can become better on those executive functions like problem solving and doing all of those kind of things. Also allow them to take brain breaks so that they are not overstimulating their brain and they have time to refresh it. Another one is hearing loss. With this, one of the main characteristics is academic. There's educational challenges, of course, in reading and writing because of their hearing loss. Communication and learning are strongly linked, so if you cannot hear your teacher talking to you, it's hard for you to probably learn what they're saying, so you have to go find different ways around this. I also researched that some deaf and hard of hearing learn better with others who are deaf or hard of hearing, so having students in a group that if you have multiple hard of hearing or deaf students, having them learn together may be beneficial for them. And then with the social and emotional aspect of it, if there's a communication barrier among parents, even teachers or the peers, there will be it'd be harder for them to learn some of the social skills that they need because they can't communicate clearly with their friends or their teacher, so the social skills may be lacking. UDLs and differentiated instruction for this one, create opportunities for self-expression, teach about deaf studies, provide deaf role models. This will really enhance their learning and help them relate themselves to someone who may be successful now. Also, make them feel included and allow for assistive devices if it's necessary. With visual impairments, the social part of it, there's little motivation to initiate interaction. Because they can't see who they're talking to, it's hard for them to want to go up and talk to you or because they don't know even who you are necessarily. And then with the academic side of it, they have a poor sense of their ability to make change, which could affect their academic achievement. Some UDLs for visual impairment would be incorporate lessons that are only visual, allow them to have hands-on learning, and assistive technology may also help in this aspect as well. Lastly, the last exceptionality we have is gifted and talented. One characteristic would be social and emotional, and some gifted and talented students are perfectionists, and that's just learned from growing up, knowing that they have been diagnosed as gifted. They are a perfectionist with whatever they're doing, and their parents have probably, or their teachers have put pressure on them to always perform well, so that is another root of the perfectionism. And it also stated that they have lower levels of anxiety. With the academic side, there's a greater opportunity for learning considering that they are gifted and they have higher expectations, but they also get more difficult assignments, so they're increasing their learning every day. They're also not bored in class, and they usually would be having better teachers considering they are gifted, so they need more challenging teachers. And then for the universal design for learning and differentiated instruction, curriculum extension, so challenge at higher levels. When a student is finished with their assignment, give them something challenging, make them challenge themselves. Also with cognitive taxonomies, lists of cognitive skills to differentiate their instruction. So that is the end of my presentation on the different exceptionalities and the characteristics that go along with them.